Walter, you did pretty good. I appreciate you not biting me during the resource guarding video we did above this one. This is Walter, and this is Walter's roadmap to success. I have a handful of treats here. Walter is very interested in the treats, so if you see him molesting my hand, that's why. Now, Walter, the resource guarding problem is the major issue for his guardians, and as I talked about in the video above, there's a lot of little tips and tricks in that video that'll help you if your dog has a resource guarding issue. But Walter has some other issues as well, and I think they're all a result of, he did, really before the session, didn't have any rules, he was under-exercised, and he invaded people's personal space and pawed at them when he wanted attention. So I consider petting a dog a way of paying the dog, so he gets paid whenever he wants to, not when he does something that I want. Also, every time he invaded his guardian's personal space, he would be climbing on top of him and they would be petting him. Anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're reinforcing. This, as I talked about in the above video, is a dominance move. So as soon as I'm petting him, he does that, I can do this, or I can just stop petting him, or whatever it is. You just want to disengage with the dog. If he keeps on pawing it, you might get up and move away. Crash. There you go. That was a little bit odd. Normally, if I want to give a treat, I want to give the treat first and say the command word immediately after. Now, to help flip the leader-follower dynamic, I went over a number of rules that the guardians can enforce to help him start to see and identify them as being authority figures. Not being allowed in the furniture, having to sit at the door, not being allowed around the humans who are eating food, not being allowed in the kitchen where we're preparing food, or in the dining room where there's food present. Now, I also went over the escalating consequences for the guardians to use to disagree with unwanted actions and behaviors. If you forget where those are, message me. I have a video, I can share it with you. But always start with your hiss and work your way up as you need to. Also, for different situations, recreating situations can really be beneficial. So if we're going to practice, we have a little one that's coming along the way. So I talked about practicing being in the all you got to do is sit. Is practice being in the baby room. What do we call it?
Nursery.
Nursery, thank you. And so that he has practice doing that before the actual baby comes. For the kitchen, we can microwave a piece of bacon or roast beef and then pretend like we're cooking and help him practice not going to the kitchen before we actually start cooking. Let's see, we also went over passive training and petting with a purpose. Passive training, petting with a purpose is if he's pawing at me or invading my space and I pet him, I'm rewarding him. Anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're specifically rewarding the dog for doing. This includes excited behavior like when we come home from work. So when the guardians come home, I would like them to ignore him as if he is invisible. He needs to be all wiggly and running around them and barking and do that. And as soon as he settles down, then reach over. All this behavior, now he really wants the treats I have in my hand, but he's trying to take them. That's a leader perspective. He thinks he's entitled to grab things. And it's not I don't look at it as a bad behavior because we haven't taught him not to do this. It's incumbent upon us to teach dogs how to behave in our world. And if we haven't, then we can't really say the dog's being naughty because it doesn't know that it's being naughty. It doesn't know it's not supposed to do that. So what I like to do is, like I said, recreate situations. We help the dog practice the behavior when we have time to do it. Now, for petting with a purpose is simply if he wants my attention, sit. Sit. Actually, here, why don't you come over here and we'll show with a little bit better camera angle. Here, buddy. Sit. So he likes to put his paw on you when you pet him. So, of course, you're doing it right away. But what I do is just basically a microcosm of what I just did. I reach over to start petting him, and as soon as the paw comes up, I stop. And then as soon as it goes back on the ground, I re-engage. I call this light switch on, light switch off. Light switch on, I'm petting. As soon as the paw comes up, I disengage, light switch off. So if your timing is good, after a while, he'll learn that putting the paw on the humans is a guaranteed way to stop them from petting me. And I kind of like being petted. Everybody. So I'll stop doing that because that's not accomplishing my goal. Now, I use a kissing sound like I just made there as my affirmation where I get the dog's attention. And if you're trying to get him to come to you and he's not coming and you say C-O-M-E, the more you say it, the less you mean it. So don't repeat it. So if I hold my hand up like this and I start lowering it, the lower I go, the more it's for the dog. Eventually, there you go. The dog will come over to you. Then what I do is I raise my hand over their head to make them sit. And then I lower my hand, let him lick the treat off if I have a treat, and I pet him under the chin, and I would say just the word sit. Not good sit, not his name, just the command word. All right, so petting with a purpose is sit. is giving him a command anytime he demands attention. So he comes and invades my space or nudges me. If I pet him, I'm rewarding him for doing those things. So instead, I give him a command, tell him to sit. When he sits, I pet him under his chin. If he's already sitting, ask him to lie down. That's pretty good. Crash. Or ask him to come and sit over here. He just has to do something to change his state in order to get that affection. Once he does, I can pet him for as long as I want to afterwards. Now, if the humans want to pet him, I still would like the humans to ask him to sit or lay down or do something. And then that way he feels like I have to earn my affection from the humans. I don't just get given it to, it's not just given to me willy-nilly. Remember, always say the command word. When I start petting him, say crash, if that's the word for this. And then pet him, just say it once and pet him for as long as you want. Now, and even if you want to pet him. Now, after a while, he's going to come start sitting in front of us to prepay for attention. When he does, make sure we do reach over, pet him under his chin preferably, and pet him and say the word sit, or crash, or whatever it is. And I come up with the watchwords to help people with this. I say vocabulary if we're using a version of the words we don't like. Most of us come up with a lot of different versions of the command words. Come here, over here, here boy, dog's name, whistle, tap my thigh. So now he's got to learn all these different words. So it's easier if we just say come. Now, because we have a little one coming, I recommend the guardians actually come up with funny command words. So when we have kids in the house, if you say crash and the dog lays down, like you said crash, and the kids will find that hilarious. So the command word for eating is going to be sushi. And so coming up with these funny command, the dog bed is Jamaica. So the more of these funny words we come up with, we bring a little bit of levity to the situation. It doesn't cost us anything at all, and now the dog feels good about doing these activities. Now, so for passive training is the flip side of that coin, is when the dog starts offering the behavior. So the dog's going to come and start sitting in front of the humans to prepay for attention because the humans are now telling him to sit. Well, now I'll beat him to the punch. I'll just sit first. When they do, make sure we reach over and pet him and say sit. Now, we can also use passive training to reward him for all the desired actions and behaviors that he does. If he goes to the dog bed on command, we're going to pet him and say Jamaica. Now he's drinking water. If we want to use a passive training for this, as soon as he takes his first drink of water, say agua or water or whatever you want. And if you do that every time he takes his first bite of food, he hears the word sushi, go ahead and let him out if he wants to. Then sushi becomes a command word to eat my food, because the only time I hear it, I have food in my mouth, not sushi. All the dogs would like raw fish. Every time I take a drink of water, I hear the word agua. So now when I'm thirsty and I don't know what to do, my guardians say agua, oh, that's a good idea, I'm going to go get some water. I taught my dog to grumble this way. But every time your dog brings you a toy, name each toy. Lizard, fist, iron, whatever they are. And now if he brings you something, you can actually, you have vocabulary to tell him those things. Speaking of vocabulary, I showed the guardians how to create a command word to leave a room. Make sure you go around the house and practice it. What I'd like you to do is practice that once a week, each one of you twice a day, or once a day for a week. And so go to each room in the house, toss a treat 3 feet outside the room. When he goes and licks it up, say the word out. And then when he comes back, do it a second time and do it for each room in the house, and then reverse it. Go back to each section, but instead of teaching to go out of the room, stand in the room in the other direction. So we practice going in the room and out of the room. I would say out for both capacities, because out means to go away from us. But this way, when we're in the kitchen, we say out, he knows, we put it in context, he knows what it is, and he's happy to do it because you're rewarded for doing so. I do the same thing for telling the dog to get off the furniture. I just throw it on the ground, and I would say the word off instead of out. Let me see, what else? So passive training and petting with a purpose. The watchwords I use for that, I say paycheck. If I suspect somebody is petting the dog without a purpose, I come in the room as the dog's standing, I say paycheck, that person stops petting, tells the dog to sit, then pets him on his chin, says sit, and explains, I asked him to sit, you just missed it. Passive training, I usually say testify, because I have some friends who are not Caucasian, and when in the not Caucasian church, if they go up and they say testify, and they go praise the Lord. So if you say testify, that's just a way of saying, hey, you're missing an opportunity to reward the dog. And you can come up with whatever your watchword is for it, but something that just means, hey, I think you might have forgotten. Let me see, and vocabulary means you're using the wrong version of the word. I also have a repeat or rerun, because the more we repeat a command, the less the dog's going to listen to it. So we might say repeat if you're saying come, come, come. Let me see, now we have a baby coming. And so one of the things I like to do is a version of a conditioned emotional response. Let's say that this is, what we would do is when the baby comes, get a washcloth, have them, the nurse or mom, wipe down the baby, and then put that in a Ziploc bag. Dad brings it home. And what we do is we have a handful of treats, and we have the washcloth in our other hand. So what we want to do is I'm going to have the treats behind my head, behind my back. I'm going to pull the towel out, put it right in front of the dog's nose. It sniffs it. I'm going to pull it away, and I'm going to pop a treat in the dog's mouth. If you know the baby's name, which I believe we know here, we would say Mia. every time after the treat goes in the mouth. And so do this about 5 times in a row, then put it back in the Ziploc bag and put it away. Try to do that 5 times a day for the 3 days when mom is at the hospital and the dog's at home. Now we're introducing the baby's smell to the dog in a very easy capacity. Mom's not home. All the visitors that are going to come and see the baby are not home. The baby is not crying or anything else. We're just one element, just the scent of the baby. And we're associated with these delicious chicken liver treats. After a while, the dog's like, get that baby home. I want more treats. So now that's the first stage. The second stage, I might put it on the ground. When the dog comes and sniffs it, I would toss a treat onto it after the dog sniffs it. Just don't let the dog pick it up or run around with it. Not that big of a deal if it does, but we want them to practice treating it gingerly. Now, mom also is going to have a shower here shortly. She's going to get all sorts of creams and lotions. Well, every day, take one of those lotions and put it on your forearm, or and dad as well. And so the dog now smells the butt paste, which is something that actually is legitimate and a real world product, and smells that independent of the baby coming home. And this is actually a week or 2 before the baby comes home. So when the baby comes home and it has a need for butt paste, we put it on. It's not necessarily something that's really crazy or hard for the dog to deal with. I'd also like the mom to be spending some time in the nursery. See, I remembered it this time. Each day, and just go in there with your iPad or a book or a magazine, sit in there. If we don't have the rocking chair, it's in a different location, but put another chair in there where you're going to put the rocking chair and practice going in there. Practice have a towel wrapped up like it's a little baby. And practice going in there and talk to it and pretend like you're changing its diapers. Again, practice the activity in the easiest capacity possible. And as soon as the dog tries to come in the room, we use the third escalating consequence, march towards that dog until it leaves the room. So by the time the baby comes, mom has been practicing me not going in that room while she changes diapers and does all these other things. And the dog has practiced the behavior that we want. When the baby comes, now it's on autopilot. Let me see, what else? Hey buddy, come. That's a little passive training. Now you don't have to give him a treat. I could have just petted him and said, come. I happen to have a treat here handy. There we go. I'm trying to think. What else do we? Is there anything else we want to go over? I covered most of it. Now, if you forget what these things are, I want you to call me or text me, preferably text me. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything is going great. There were a couple things. Before the baby comes, the week before the baby's coming, or maybe the week, 2 weeks before, he should start going to a doggy daycare once a week. Actually, now it reminds me of exercise. I would like the guardians to start an exercise journal. Get a piece of paper, write down the date at the top, and write down the time and how long the walk was. The time and how many up, downs, and the stairs. Remember the treat toss, that would be a great way to burn energy. He seemed to like chasing a laser. Maybe you have him run around the room and call each one of those a revolution. So quantify them, put down a metric, Jamaica. And so the dog now, and throughout the day, every time we exercise, we write the time and then the duration or the iterations or the number of repetitions or whatever it is. Then at the end of the day, grade that day. And the next day, add an extra up-down set or a couple more repetitions or whatever it is. Eventually, we'll get to the point where the dog, you're supposed to be sitting at this point. And if he doesn't, I'm not going to ask him multiple times, just the treat goes away. Eventually you'll get to the point where you'll find he has an A day for exercise. Now we know what sort of exercise threshold he needs in order to behave. A lot of times when dogs misbehave, it's because we haven't helped them burn off that excess energy. And I'm pretty sure that a little bit of the case here. Now, before the baby comes, we can set him up for success. So maybe 2 weeks before the baby comes, take him to a dog daycare. Take him to the one that I recommend you, because it's close, even though they don't work with us anymore. They're still good people. And take him there once that week just to make sure he does well. And then the next week, take him 2 days. And then when the week the baby comes, he goes 3 days in a row. So each day, he's there all day long having a blast with all the other dogs. And then when dad comes home and he's tired, picks up and the dog is just chill and relaxed. And then when the actual baby comes, he spent 3 days being at doggy daycare. The guardians have noticed if they take him consecutive days, he gets pretty wiped out. So now when the baby comes and all the visitors and all the crying and all the excitement, he's prepared for it because we've, first of all, helped him practice not going in the baby room, not being on the furniture, respecting people's personal space, and we burned off his excess energy for those 3 days. So when he comes home, he just wants to go to Jamaica and catch a chill, right? Yes. Okay, so, but do that about 2-3 weeks before the baby comes, just in case he gets kicked out of daycare. Well, then we might need to incorporate, maybe he's not as good with daycare as he was before, he's a little out of practice, so we might incorporate a dog walker or something along those lines. But exercising him ahead of time will really help success. And same thing when you have guests come over. You gotta have people come over to visit him, you take him to daycare for a half day, or make sure he plays scent games, or does some exercise, whatever it is. And remember, whenever he gets rowdy or naughty, interpret that as his way of saying, I have too much energy, I need you to help stimulate me somehow. See if you can figure this one out. Sit. All right. Go get that one. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come here. Oh, one last thing before I summarize. There you go. I showed the guardians how to teach him how to stay. Teaching him how to stay will be a great one. It'll be very handy, but it's going to be something you're going to need to practice a lot. So remember the 3 Ds. First for duration, then distance, and then distraction. If I haven't put it in the write-up above this and you want me to do, just message me and I can embed it in a link. So hopefully if you're not the guardian, somebody else watching this video, you can learn how to teach your dog to stay. And then if you want to take advantage of the dog daycare training and teach him to walk with a loose leash, just let us know. And we will, so as soon as that happened, the treat went away. And then we'll teach him how to walk with a loose leash while he's at daycare training, while you guys are at home recovering and working with little Mia. All right, well, this is Walter, and this is Walter's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.